Indeed, I do like that bit at the end. And it's coming into the autumn season in the Northern Hemisphere, so the more hotness we can get. And we've got hotness with us today. John, how are you doing? Are you okay?
How are you? Hot as ever, absolutely sizzling.
And are you hotting up?
Well, definitely a warm-up act last night at the PMO flash mob that people kind of saw our pictures of. So yes, we had a great night last night, so warmed us up for today.
Yes, so we will shove up some pictures on that. I think that's a technical term. But anyway, let's get on because we've got loads to get through today. All good stuff. So if you're watching here in the audience, hello. It's Chitty Chat. Make sure you get chat up there. And if you're watching this on live stream, either on YouTube or LinkedIn, you can get involved. We're watching and seeing if there's any comments, and we'll bring you into the show as well. So it's September. And it's which is a bit all about news, which is really interesting because I've got some people sharing some stuff with me, and I thought we covered that last month on HotHouse, so we're well ahead of the curve. So over to you, John. You're going to take us through some stuff that we need to be knowing about, yeah?
Absolutely. We're going to fly through this at breakneck pace to give enough space for everyone later on. As always, I will share all of the links to things we're talking about in chat as soon as I've gone through the slides. So up first is an HBR one, learning or performance. This is quite fun. We often talk to people and we say, right, we need to innovate and deliver. We need to learn and perform, all these kind of things that we want people to do. And they're quite contradictory terms when you stop and think about them. Which one of those do we want? One of those is about learning. One of them is about you're not going to be innovative and experiment if you just want to get something across the line quickly. So what they've done in this research, they've looked at 109 US companies, and they found evidence that basically those mixed messages create ambiguity in teams. They cause confusion, and those teams are less efficient than teams that have very, very clear messaging and direction on which of those paths they're taking. Sounds like common sense, and yet how often in our organizations do we see these mixed messages given to organizations and to project teams as well? So the simple message, the key takeaway there is don't overload teams with conflicting signals. The guidance is to choose a dominant orientation or sort of compass point. This is the direction that we're going in. Be clear on that and then stick with it for better results. If you do have conflicting messages, which we do have from time to time with shared reality, right? Then make sure we're clear on priority order for people, so people understand that we are innovation first, but we do have to get some stuff delivered, and then we're clear on what those priorities are that allow teams, when they're struggling and conflicting with ideas, they've got that model to come back to that helps them prioritize and saves that time on disagreements and going in different directions and struggling to pull everything together. So I'll share that link later on for you, but do have a think about the messaging you're giving to project managers in particular about how they should be working and what they should be focusing on. On to the next one then. This is a new publication from APM. It's new out this month, Guide to Integrated Assurance Management. I don't have any more information for you on this one other than it is there and it is out, because it hasn't arrived yet. So I'll probably come back to that one next month, assuming it lands on my doormat at some point before that session. It'll be really interesting to see how that ties in with the sort of governance and assurance certifications that have come out recently from Ross and everyone else. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of links in.
Real
I
book,
will report back on that one. Sorry, Lindsay.
is it a real book or a digital?
It's a real physical book, absolutely.
Okay, right.
So
Okay.
I'm waiting for my physical copy to arrive. 59 pages, apparently.
Right. Question: Has Roy been involved in this?
I don't know. I was absolutely curious. This is kind of all I have, and I ordered it. But that was my first wonder: is Roy involved? Has he been involved in the publication of this? Because his work's been fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see how it all links together.
Oh, I think we need to grab Roy. If anybody didn't know who we're referring to, it's Roy Millard. He's been the friend of House of PMO, person that we call on for anything assurance. So I want to try and grab him about. But yeah, okay, next one, yeah.
Yeah, next one here, and so we've got a new book. We've also got a new course or course / certification out. Impact Engine, I think people who've been to the PMO conference will have be aware of Laura Bernard and her lovely Purple Impact Engine book. She's done some training in the UK in the past as well. Very passionate, full of energy around the PMO space and the value it can give to organizations. So it's quite exciting. She's got a course out. It's being delivered through PMO Learn, so do check out their website and see what dates they've got for that one. Key things to call out on this one from sort of my take on it. I really like the way that it's contextual about the PMO. So it's not just about saying, well, these are the things that PMO should do. It's saying, well, actually, let's look at the organization, the strategic outcomes the organization wants, and look at how the PMO then links back into those. It's very much thinking about the PMO in the context of the organization it's in, which I love and absolutely agree with. There's a strong emphasis in that on mindset and behavior shifts to drive strategic outcomes. So if you're looking for a course that teaches you processes, your sort of Prince 2 type approach to things, learn the process, follow the process, this is probably not for you. It is very much around the right mindsets, the right behavior shifts, but all towards driving strategic outcomes. And again, I think that's great because so much of what PMOs do is human centric, and it's people that deliver projects. And last point I made on it there was it kind of what I've just said. It's a human-centric approach to setting up a PMO for success. Well worth looking at. I love Laura's work, and I see from Zoe there that she enjoyed Laura's one-day session at the PMO conference this year as well. So I'll share a link to that one too.
It's interesting, just jumping in, John, for conversations. This is what happens. You go to a flash mob thing, which we did in London last night. And of course, there's conversations that we've had have been like the forefront of your mind. There's a lot of discussion and chat around AI and the AI use. Where that will fit in terms of the whole PMO stuff. And I think this is the kind of thing where, you know, PMOs potentially elevating themselves upper level or two. And this kind of behavioral type stuff that you're talking about is very much in the whole kind of impact engine approach, which we've heard about at the conference this year as well. So there's a lot of chitty chat going on at the moment about the two ends of where the PMO role is, the kind of analytical bit, and then there's the kind of strategic side of it, which is becoming more and more prominent in discussions, everyday discussions, including over chips and drinks in the pub last night. So anyway, next one. There you go.
Right, the next one. Everybody loves free resources, and this is a nice free resource from the US Government Accountability Office. And I've mentioned a few things that have come out of the US government in these sessions that are actually quite good, good quality resources to get your hands on. So this one's downloadable. It's a 47-page PDF, and the idea of this is it's the US Government Accountability Office creating guidance for, and it's mainly for their Department of Defense, but for other federal agencies as well. But the idea is to try and give them guidance to improve outcomes for the projects that are being done by or for US government. But they publish it openly, which means it is helpful to everybody else as well. It's an easy 47 pages to scan through. I think the key sort of bits of interest there are reinforcing things that I know a lot of you know already, but it's about Agile portfolio management and talking you through their idea of that. And we're not talking about Scrum here, we're talking about sort of top level sort of business agility and the idea of continuously reevaluating, adjusting portfolios, certainly in a product driven environment, and tying that in quite nicely with business cases being iterative as well, emphasizing that they aren't things that we create at the beginning and then just leave to die on a shelf, but the examples they've got in here, they're emphasizing a lot. The business cases get iterated and then are continuously feeding into quarterly portfolio reviews to make decisions on what we should be doing on that sort of quarterly cadence there. And you can see there's lots of sort of, there's a screenshot at the bottom there of sort of their sort of markers on creating an initial business case and actually calling an initial business case to emphasize that this is the start and it will get updated, and then iteratively updating that as we go, forcing that to come back in and justify its position in the portfolio and make those active decisions based on that as well. So quite an interesting read, whilst it is aimed at Department of Defense and other sort of areas in the US government. I think a lot of you, certainly in an environment where you're using agile delivery and product management techniques, you find this useful and some good ideas in there for you as well.
Lovely. Thank you.
And the last one I had kind of ties in with what you just mentioned, Lindsay, as well, which is around AI. Now, there isn't one big news thing here for this month on AI, but I just wanted to pull some sources together that I hope you find useful. I've just called it AI, where to get guidance away from social media, because social media seems, everything about AI at the moment seems to be delivered in a breathless, enthusiastic way of how absolutely amazing something is, and it's a real struggle to get, when you want to sort of come back and say, well, actually, what should the governance look like? What should the structures look like? How much do we trust this? What are we doing with it? What are we not doing with it? And that stuff seems to be a lot more opaque. So I've just pulled these together, and I'll share links there that hopefully are good places for you to look at and have a read on. So a few here. UK government has an artificial intelligence playbook, which is out. It's principles based, is well written, and is a good way to start thinking about the principles that you want to have around AI in your organizations and in the project management world as well. There is a new this month system impact assessment, ISO 42005, and that did come out in 2023. They've fully updated it for 2025. If your organization has access to ISO standards, they've got a really good way here of doing an AI system assessment to look at what it is, how you're using it, impacts on people, systems, and everything else there as well, safety, security. So if you are embarking on a sort of AI first or AI centric initiative in your organization, it might be worth encouraging the teams involved in that transformation to download that impact assessment and use that to assess where you're going with it. ICO has guidance. It's not been updated since March 23. I'll share the link in a minute, but they've got a 2-day conference in October. I would expect more guidance to be coming out of that one, so bookmark it when I share it and revisit in October. ISO guidance coming is the good news. They've got something really specifically for project management. They've got a working group together for project, program, and portfolio management, artificial intelligence concepts, applications, and implications. But their stuff is quality, but it's also slow because they get it right. So that's not going to be out till 2027, but I've bookmarked them, and I will keep watching what they're doing. And when they put public drafts out, I'll share those back with you. Project Management Journal is got a special edition coming out. They've just put a call out for contributions, but that will go through their process again, October 2026. So we'll report back once we see that one there as well for you. Those two will give us some nice project portfolio level guidance. Then we've got an APM report on AI and project management from 2022, PMIs from 2024. They've got a follow-up blog post, which I'll share for 2025 as well, because things are moving so fast. And for those people here who are House of PMO members, if you look for the bookmark AI on the House of PMO website, there are a plethora of articles and sessions that have been done in the AI space that are worth dipping into, just to get insight into what the thinking is, how things are evolving, and what people are doing. And as Eileen's mentioned there, they're doing more and more of those sessions. They've got a couple of great ones coming up as well, and Lindsay has kindly shared the link for their next one in chat as well for you.
Incidentally, our Inside PMO report about AI came out in 2021. That's when we first started getting around the table and trying to know what's going on. So yeah, and actually, if anybody's interested to get onto the reports page, which I'll just stick it into chat right now, it's still relevant, because if you look at it, we were just talking very much about data, which is still a thing today. So yeah, excellent.
That's it from me. Links incoming in the chat.
Right, super duper. Yeah, let's have a quick but yes, you probably heard that we went out and about, and we've done a couple of things actually this week. all going on. Left hand side there, you can see the gang from South Coast PMO flash mob incident. That's Gary that you can see there taking the selfie. Gary and Claire approached me last year and said, we'd love to see some stuff down on the South Coast. Is there any way that Gary and I, Claire, could actually organize these and pull people in these regions? And that's what we've been doing. This is the third one they've done. They've got another one coming up in December, and they're running it, which is fantastic. And for anybody who's been to the conference this last time, certainly for PMO Learn, you might recognize Steve Blades there, that picture in the middle. He was getting into benefits management, and really outcomes from that really interesting stuff is going to be in the library next week. So great to see people wanting this stuff themselves. You don't need us to physically be there, but we here at the House of PMO support them to be able to do that, including helping them find a space, helping them find speakers. Other side of the spectrum is going really social, which is the classic bread and butter of PMO Flash Mob. We started in pubs, we carry on being in pubs, and this was last night, and I think I put a post out this morning, is that we're determined to overcome the PMO networking inertia of people being able to or wanting to get out and actually talk to people and see the value in it. And last night we had a little bit of a networking type activity for people to do, which was about crowns and anchors, which was the name of the pub, and we were looking at the kind of things that the PMO gets celebrated for, which is the crowns, things that help like drag us down, hold us back, the anchors. It got people talking. There's a few blue things on there, by the way. There are a few little swear words and stuff, but it does help conversation, and we had a good time, didn't we? I mean, both Eileen and I were there because we were down in London anyway, but John has been taking more of a role in pulling together London, and I think we were pleased with the people that were out there, the buzz and all the rest of it. So yeah, really good to be out and about, and there's more coming. Have a look at the events page. We have got Manchester and Bristol, and of course we're going to be up in Edinburgh. So next bit. Whew. We're on to some PMO skills. We've had to get a new little video bit for this because we've not done PMO skills. We've done soft skills, but we recognise that we've perhaps not done something around this. Eileen, do you want to take it away?
Yes, I'm trying not to get distracted by all of John's links because I want some of them for doing my stuff anyway. Yes, Lindsay and I on a regular basis have a look at the competence framework. Yeah, we still read it and still look at it and think about, are we providing coverage over all of the different areas that we need to, and this was one area where we recognized that actually we've not done, I think, anything in this area at all. So I don't want to kind of, it's Friday lunchtime, we don't want to go into anything kind of too heavy, and we're definitely interested if you want us to run a few more kind of detailed session on it. But I thought what I'd do is just kind of pick up, if we go to the next slide, Lindsay, I thought we'd just kind of pick up three areas as we have various kind of conversations and we talk through different subject areas. These are three areas where kind of time and time again we get people having a conversation saying, oh, we do that, we can't do that. It's a bit of an issue for us. And I just thought I was going to kind of put it out on the table and just talk about it just for a few minutes today. I'm very happy that as we go through chats, people can kind of say, this is an area we've really sussed and this is what we've done to help, or actually, yes, Eileen, we agree, this is something we want to talk through. So I've just got a little bit on there, but as I say, more than happy that we can kind of provide some additional stuff as we can on any of the subject areas. So I just want to talk through these three: total cost of ownership, whether we play or not, whether we look at risk monetisation, and the phased release of funding. And Lindsay, I've done that horrible thing of done animation for every bit, but I don't think we actually need that. So feel free to kind of just pull them all up. There's 5 for each page. So total cost of ownership in terms of what this is about is when we're producing a business case, we need to be very clear that when we're going to spend some money on, say, a piece of software and implement that software in the organization, what we shouldn't just look at is how much is it going to cost us to deliver the project to implement that piece of software. What we also need to understand is that when we implement that software, there's going to be an ongoing. So I just want to talk through these three: total cost of ownership, whether we play or not, whether we look at risk monetization, and don't know what that was. Did you hear that as well? No, mine was replaying back. So what we need to start thinking about saying is when we're taking the project and we're asking the organization to invest, what we're also saying is that you're also committing to the license costs for the next 3, 5, 10 years. So we actually need to have those kind of full costs, and this should be in the business case. Okay. And so what happens is people kind of implement things and then suddenly realize we've got a whole thing going forward that we hadn't anticipated, and the budgets don't necessarily count for that. And what's really interesting is there's lots of good reasons why. Talk through these three: total cost of ownership. Oh, that I don't know how that's happening. We can the record. Do other people hearing that replay bit? Yes. I'm going to keep on going regardless. So what happens is when we're pulling the business case together, very often the project manager is heavily involved in understanding kind of all of the work that they're involved with. But what we haven't got is an understanding of, well, what happens back in business as usual. So they're not actually talking to the people on the ground who are actually going to be managing that going forward. And obviously what happens is your business case looks a lot more expensive. So, there's this kind of real fear that actually what we're looking at is something much bigger than what we think we could get signed off. And so there are some kind of ways to do it, partly in terms of kind of looking at creating, as we're going through the business case, to start asking some specific questions. And we've talked previously, I'm sure we've done a number of sessions on checklists. And so just creating a couple of kind of checklists around total cost of ownership in your business case template. And actually, if as you become more mature with that, really interesting working with finance, who have an understanding of kind of the ongoing cost structure and the cost structure across the organization in terms of kind of what that might look like. So there are a couple of tools, there's lots of kind of whole life costing tools. CBS is a cost breakdown structure. And interestingly, once you start actually becoming mature enough to do the benefits cost tracking and understand when we're going to be making some, where the benefits are going to come from, understanding that you've got to have a kind of the cost benefit analysis going into the future, whether that be for 3 or 5 or 10 years, naturally drags some of those questions. So that's the first session the first bit in terms of total cost of ownership. Anybody absolutely got that completely embedded in their business cases and ways of working? Oh, interesting, Helen. Yeah, good to say that that's kind of moving forward. The second bit we talk about is risk monetization. And interestingly, this too starts off essentially at the business case. So what happens is we put the business case together and we say, as we're going into this particular project, then we've got a number of risks. And the idea is that as we sign that off, the senior management are very aware of how much is involved in terms of the risks that they're about to carry. But there are not a huge number of organizations who actually recognize what those risks will cost them when they come to fruition. And it's a conversation I have with my children as they bought their first cars, in terms of, yes, it's great, kind of having a small outlay for a car that's an old banger, but what you have to have is a large wallet to pay for the maintenance, because you're typically going to have to do quite a bit of maintenance as you kind of to running costs, because it's old and a bit run down. Differently, if you kind of go for a brand new car where you've got a big outlay to start with, but actually then you need a smaller wallet because you've just got the running costs, but you haven't got such a high maintenance cost going forward. And hopefully some of that's covered by the warranty that you have with your car. So what we do here with risk is we say, well, actually what should happen is we put our budget together for the project and say, well, actually, here's the budget for £1 million. What we should also say is that we've looked at the risks and we've looked at, kind of how much it will cost us to deal with the risks as they become problems, then actually what we need to do is we need to have our wallet on the side, our contingency budget, our risk budget. We need to have another £100,000 set aside. Now, we're not giving that to the project manager to spend with 100 million to start with. It's separated as a separate amount of money. And what they have to demonstrate is this risk came to fruition. And because this risk came to fruition, we'd like to draw down some money around this risk budget. And so there's very few kind of organizations have that. Some of the large construction companies, because obviously there's, kind of, sometimes they say they kind of get that put in, but I would say it's not as common as perhaps it should be. So there's quite an interesting kind of discipline to start actually putting some pounds, shillings and pence, euros, dollars, yen, whatever, around each of those risks to say, well, actually, if these risks come to fruition, would we still want to go ahead with the project to start with? And we've got to have them put aside. So again, it's really the extension of risk management. We've covered risk management a number of times in this area. We've also done it in PMO Learn, but we've not really talked around, kind of putting together this contingency budget. And as Chris says there, putting the governance round a contingency budget and being able to pull it down is perhaps another area. And what I find really interesting is having that conversation around whether we just we say, well, there's a kind of a 10% leeway, let's just give it all at once, or whether actually we have to kind of take it separately and where finance hold that, because essentially it should be boxed away so nobody gets to spend it by accident, if we call it that way. So yes, so yeah, very much in terms of kind of looking at what percentage. You wouldn't want to necessarily hold a budget for every single risk. It's a percentage of those risks, which is where the Monte Carlo analysis kind of comes into. So that's another area, as a PMO manager, we should be very clear in terms of kind of how finance deal with that. And then the final one, which again is about our relationship with finance and around our governance structure, and something that needs to be embedded right at the very beginning of the project, is this concept of phased release of funding. Now, the whole idea of things like Prince 2 and having stages in project management was actually you don't get released. Again, if I've got £100 million for my, or even £100,000 set aside for my project, in essence, I need to spend some of that money anyway to start building up the business case, because that may involve some costs. But actually, what I don't want to do is give the project manager £100,000 or £100 million, whatever that number is, right at the very beginning of the project. What I want to say is what's the next key milestone? What's the next phase of the project? How much of that overall budget should we give you? Because essentially whatever we give you now is running at risk until you prove you can spend it correctly. As I've always said, the delivering the project to be is the easy bit, because it's all about spending the money. I'm a dab hand at spending money. Actually demonstrating you've got value for what you've spent is where the challenge bit comes from. So the idea is that we would give you the first portion of the budget, and at a milestone or at a stage gate, we'd say, right, then how's it gone so far? You've had the first £15,000. Have you delivered £15,000 worth of value? If not, why not? And actually, of the remaining £85,000, is it still £85,000? Is it £75,000? Or is it £95,000? And you have a much better conversation about going through that stage gate. And again, it drives a different culture around projects, because as a project manager, you can't go into that stage gate thinking, well, we've got all the money, we're just going to kind of keep on running. It forces a much better conversation and a greater level of governance that says you have to come and justify again to your project what it's going to be delivering, forces you to revisit the business case before we actually kind of release that next portion of the budget. And again, that's an integration of your systems and processes and your release of finance. So just, sorry, I don't need kind of a quick, but I just wanted to mention those three areas. To me, there are three things that as a project manager, it's not part of the standard kind of budgeting and how you manage your budget of the project. It will take the PMO to set up these processes in place to make sure they're established and we improve the governance of spend on projects.
Okay, whistle stop tour, but I think we were going to be revisiting for sure. Just running out. We've got a whole stakeholder as well. But we have been doing, some new tool alerts, like AI type bits, things that we're learning about and utilizing and using. Just a really quick one then. So taking a PID document, freely available on the web because it's a council and they put everything out there. And I wonder if anybody's been using any of the infographic type things that are out there. These are the ones that essentially sticking in a PID, giving us some visuals or what might be in there, being able to give us an idea about what it's choosing to prioritize, what it's seeing as the headlines. There's different things out there. I'm just going to show you three different types. So we've got infographics for AI, we've got Venngage, which is a little bit nicer, but again, in terms of giving you some kind of highlights, headlines, perhaps it's usable. These visuals, we're talking about communications, keeping them simple. People do like a visual. One of the best ones on the market at the moment is PictoChart. We have mentioned it before. But again, you can see this is just purely sticking a PID and giving it no instruction. Then I put again the PID in there for picture chart and said focus on the risk sides of stuff that's in there and giving us some pros and cons. It's an interesting one for you as PMO professionals. You've got a big document in front of you. What is it actually? What is in there, and what is it that is the main things that things like AI are actually pulling out? And you never know, these are the kind of visuals that can give you some ideas about how you might present this information, this whatever it might be. But yeah, quick one this time is infographics. They're exploding everywhere. It's one of the easiest things that I suppose these AI organizations, startups, it's one of the easiest things that you can push out there as a free tool. So yeah, just interested to know whether you've used them or not already, and do you see any use for them? So let's move on because we've got Edinburgh coming up. And just to let you know, we've got a competition that is finishing today. I'm going to put the links in. On left-hand side, we've been running it all month. It's been brilliant. PMO survival kit. We've been asking people for 5 different things you would have in your survival kit. We've had some brilliant answers, and we're going to be sharing those next week and obviously picking out a winner. And then also treasure hunt. We are going to be doing a treasure hunt in Edinburgh the night before the conference to get people together, networking, the thing. So we're going to be PMO pirating across the Edinburgh streets, but also there are some golden tickets and treasure hunts for you to do right now. If you want to come to Edinburgh, budgets are tight. There are some offers there, and one of them online is about trying to find the treasure chests, which are scattered around the House of PMO website. But also, if you're in Edinburgh yourself, there are some tickets physically out there on the streets. Interesting. So I'll put the links on there if you're interested and want to have a crack at it. But let's move on. Okay, so we're into the hot seat, and we've got 2 gentlemen with us today who have become people that I've met at the last conference, I think. I might be jumping the gun, but I'd like to introduce, first of all, Martin Parr. He was running a session at PMO Learn this year, which was all about systems thinking, and it got us really thinking after that session. I think we can all recognise that we're working in environments which are quite complex in its nature, that we would all really like to understand what different techniques we could use to be able to navigate that, to be able to make progress, decision making, all of that kind of good stuff. So Martin did a great session that got us thinking. And secondly, it also got Chris thinking. And Chris Walters, for many of you might recognise, MCs around the PMO conference. Chris is also a PMO consultant as well. Chris is it's actually available at the moment. So if you're looking for somebody to come in and do wonderful things with your PMO, you can reach out for him. No doubt he'll put his LinkedIn details in the chat. But Martin, first of all, great to see you again. I hope you like the AI generated images of yourself and Chris as system thinkers. What do you reckon?
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, awesome. I think that's it's amazing what AI can do, isn't it, in this this day and age. So yeah, delighted to join you. Yeah.
And we've got Chris. Hi, Chris. Chris, and you're really interested in this subject. It's something that goes back earlier in your education, I believe.
Yeah, so about 30 years ago, I was looking around for an open university course to do, and there was a course called Systems Thinking and Complexity, and the write-up of it looked really quite interesting. So I signed up for that, and had quite an enjoyable year delving into aspects of systems thinking, which, as a relatively new project manager at the time, was absolutely eye-opening.
And do you see, but there was, obviously you were at PMO Learn, you met Martin there as well, and you've been talking together. What's going on then? Let's earwig about what systems thinking and how it will be useful for PMO people as we move forward in what is looking pretty complex landscape at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, as I mentioned, I got interested in systems thinking about 30 years ago, and subconsciously I've used elements of it ever since. And probably less so in my project management career, but as soon as I was in PMOs, the complexity goes up by by a factor of 10, because you're not doing the project management thing of trying to put something in a box and control it when you're in a PMO. You're plugged into an organization which is plugged into its market and its operating context, and everything's changing all around you. And you're trying to help projects to assimilate changes in context in in-flight projects. So yeah, very very useful in the world of PMOs, and also when it comes to explaining things and framing problems. And I think that's the major strength of systems thinking. But just winding back a little bit to probably about a year ago, Martin delivered a webinar on, I don't think it was on here, but it was a House of PMO webinar. And then I had the delight of meeting him in PMO Learn at the PMO conference in June. And that's really rekindled my interest and my support for the topic, such that I thought, you know what, there must be something that we can do for PMO people, because it's a fantastic toolkit. Maybe Martin, can you bring systems thinking to life for the PMO colleagues, and just give us a little bit of a flavour as to what why you've made a career in a business and a professorship out of all of this, so it's probably not something that's fragile or short-lived.
No, indeed, it's not. Systems thinking has become very much the sort of the tool of choice for UK government. The Royal Academy of Engineering very much endorse it, as does the World Health Organization. So it's fascinating to see. Complexity essentially is the thing that we're all dealing with. As you said, Chris, it's complexity is everywhere. And as you start to particularly zoom up towards that, how do you help an organization to deal with all of the issues that it's facing? You can take one of a number of ways of dealing with it. One way is focus on doing the doing, same as last year, keep going. That's what a lot of organizations did in the past when things were a bit less turbulent, when things were a bit more predictable, perhaps. You could afford to do that. Nowadays, everything's changing so fast. I mean, just look at the impact of AI over the last few years. Businesses are changing massively, and complexity can feel really, really frustrating. So systems thinking is basically a toolkit that helps deal with complexity. And it's being used more and more. It offers essentially a holistic way of dealing with complex problems at source. One of the issues about just, I don't know, gut feel, or the myriad of different approaches outside of systems thinking, is you tend to move the problem around. You tend to deal with, take the problem out of one part of your organization, and you immediately then shove a problem into another part, and that's great for the person who's got it off their sort of area. Great, it's fantastic, it's sort of solved. But actually, for the organization as a whole, that's still something that's got to hold it back. Systems thinking offers essentially a holistic way of dealing with problems at source and actually reaping then the benefits of it. So yeah, it is really immensely powerful. Yeah.
So something I'm particularly interested in, Martin, and this is, I think, quite a hard concept to get across. In your mind, so what's the real difference between something that's complex and something that's complicated? And I kind of asked that, kind of like replaying a little bit the Zinovan talk at the at PMO Learn this year.
Absolutely, yeah. Very much the talk brilliantly delivered by Zoe. So yes, it's really really relevant, I think, to put it in that sense. So complicated. Complicated problems are those where cause and effect relationships exist. So they may not be easy to identify, they may not be straightforward, but something that's complicated might be, for example, building a bridge. So you know that there's a direct relationship between, making sure the foundations of the bridge are solid, making sure that you've got a structure that is going to carry the weight, and the ultimate success of the bridge as a structure. And so those relationships are by no means straightforward. And there's a whole lot of things tugging away. There's a lot of prediction needed for traffic demand. There's a lot of prediction needed about the wind, about all sorts of factors. But in the end, that's complicated, and it's about the cause and effect, being managed. And you can get down to how those relationships exist. Complex, on the other hand, is where you don't really have fixed cause and effect relationships. So if we take, for example, changing the culture of an organization, one of the things that I do quite a lot in my work, you can't go back to a standard way of doing it. You can't write a process that says this is how we change the culture of an organization, because in some organizations you do a few things and a lot's going to change, and people are going to rebel. People are not going to like it. It depends what you're changing it to. It depends what what people have been through. It depends on how people feel in that transition. Are they bought in? Are they not bought in, etc. So actually, complex is a whole different space, and you don't run something in a complex space in the way you do in a complicated space. So figuring out what kind of complexity you're dealing with is so vital right at the beginning, and then looking at the appropriate approach to deal with that sort of complexity is so important, and that's very much what systems thinking can do.
Okay, I guess from my perspective, then, just to bring it back into the PMO domain, the kinds of tools, systems thinking tools that I've used, there's obviously a couple of partitions in systems thinking. There's the hard systems, which lends itself to algorithms and models and numbers and that kind of stuff, and then there's the soft side of things, which really does deal with the complexity, where not everything is seen at the same time and not by everybody. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And the biggest usage I've got out of systems thinking tools is to be able to diagram interactions between things and how they interact, and be able to, over time, iterate those based on knowledge inputs from the various subject matter experts and leaders around the business, such that a common view of the complexity is achieved. And that, obviously that can be refined over time, because one of the features of complexity is what you don't know. So there's always an element of iteration, but just being able to encapsulate how things interact and the complexity of who and when and with what viewpoints they have is a massive tool to allow solutions to be come up with. So that it doesn't necessarily lead straight to a solution, but it allows people to see widely enough that appropriate solutions can be obtained. And I think having shared those kind of interaction models with leaders, practitioners, allows everybody to get on the same page, which is really, really important in solving problems. So I think that, for me, that's one of the biggest areas where a PMO can benefit from systems thinking, is just getting everybody on the same page, and it's a broad enough page that you're not missing the important bits.
Exactly. I think that is so vital, as you said, to sort of help people to literally find that sort of that same area. And how did you? I mean, so you talked about your experience in terms of the OU course, and how that was relatively sort of new at the time, wasn't it? Because back at sort of in the 90s, I think you said it was something that wasn't in vogue as much. I mean, when I was first practicing systems thinking in the 2000s, people kind of looked at me strangely. Well, you're not going to bring numbers. You're not going to bring, you're going to use voting. You're going to get opinion. How we feel matters.
It's quite interesting, really, because this was the first year of running this course, and it was kind of carved out of a cave somewhere deep in the cellars of Lancaster University by a couple of pioneers in the topic, and they really struggled to get tutors who could help to guide students through it. So yeah, as a discipline, as a written down discipline, it's pretty new. And I'm a bit disappointed, in all honesty, to see that 30 years on, it's still a bit of a niche area, and it's something that really needs to be in the tool chest of, if not the kind of like the admin and the support areas of PMO, but certainly in the leadership areas where the ecosystem is everything. I'm thinking kind of like programs and portfolios especially, because they've got tentacles that go into all different parts of the business, and potentially they need to change the project balance at the whim of a regulator or a competitive disruption. And I think that those higher levels of PMO people would really benefit from being able to get holistic views and broad views.
Indeed, they will. Yeah, I think the better, and this is one of the key things, the better that you can see how things interact, the better your decision making. So it kind of goes back to some of the comments in the chat that Lindsay was making about the complexity challenge. And actually, once you start to sort of build things together towards a framework, once you start to have that kind of picture of how things fit together, it makes it a whole lot more straightforward. And once that picture is shared with your kind of key decision makers, life becomes a whole lot easier. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Do we have time to pick up? There's a few things I would pick up from the chat, but I don't know whether.
No, unfortunately not. We've come to. Yeah, I mean, I knew this would happen. You'd start getting into a subject, you two. But yeah, no, we're over time, and but I think what we have done is obviously shared the sessions that you've done already. There is a bit of a call for action here, because we know that there are people having done those sessions, having listened to it, listening to what you're talking about right now, listening and tantalizingly about different techniques and how to deal with some of this stuff. I think this is going to be a subject that we need to revisit again. But I know that you're also thinking about, is there extended learning in this? Is there a course in it? Would enough PMO people be interested in that? And that's what we're going to be exploring, because it's one of those things that we're always into. If there's some techniques that are really going to help, we want to know about it. But so sorry, Martin, Chris, it's lovely to have you in the hot seat. We need to vacate the seat now. But thank you very much for coming on today's session. And